we see how in the annals of human history, man and God often work and walk hand in hand. There are some people who are the hands of God here on earth because of the authority that they wield in his name. A good example is the first real king, and certainly the first Christian king of Hungary, Stephen. He managed to unite the kingdom and make into it one political unit, exercising the authority which he knew well how to wield, but having placed it under the authority of the High King. He had himself positively and personally embraced the Christian faith, and we are here at the turn of the first millennium, and the kingdom of Hungary as such at this point begins to exist. But he constructs this kingdom as a model kingdom where Christ will have authority on every level. The structure of the church as such came into place under his authority, notably the construction of churches, the division into dioceses, and the building of large monasteries. The biggest of all was Pannonhalma, and he was aware of the importance of that long, gratuitous, contemplative prayer, where Christ reigns on the soul and therefore on the interior life of his people. He enforced the laws that Christ wanted enforced. In fact, the likes of blasphemy and adultery became crimes parallel to theft and murder. It's interesting, actually, that fairly recently in the history of Europe there has been a complete shift in the old Russia, where now blasphemy is punishable. Interesting compared with what is allowed and encouraged, it would seem, on the media of our officially Christian and Catholic land. Now, I want to zoom in to only one side of his character and develop it. It's the fact that he was accessible and that he treated the poor and the oppressed with great gentleness. He also used to distribute alms, sometimes, notice, in disguise, which actually constituted a serious security risk, which once had almost fatal consequences. We have his teaching in print still to Emmerich, his son, indicating what a king should do, and he was forming this young man to be also a model successor. Alas, he died before his father. But I want to zoom into this question of this side of his character, which is accessibility. Just the other day, I was giving teaching in a convent in Holland, which is precisely a Benedictine convent and therefore well structured, and where this element of authority does come in. As you may know, the one who governs souls stands or falls on this one question: accessibility. Look around. Look at church life. It applies to bishops. It applies to parish priests, as it applies to abbots and abbesses. Do they have the heart of their people? Can the people get to them? It applies also in a classroom situation. Can a child actually approach a teacher outside the forum of authority and teaching as such if there's a problem at home? I remember actually when we were starting in Cardiff High School that our housemaster did indicate this to us. If you have a problem, that's what I'm here for. Don't hesitate to come. And quite often, nowadays, it is the teacher who will cop on before anyone else that there's something seriously wrong. In the child, because in the home, first of all. At home, is there that accessibility between children and parents? It's a difficult balance because there must be authority. But the authority will not actually be there on a spontaneous level if the accessibility is not. And by that I mean the same game that one had to play, for instance, in a novitiate. One can't influence the will if one hasn't got the heart. It's easy to make a rough correction. It'll have the immediate effect. But in the long term, one has lost influence. It's only when there's relationship and profound relationship that the rest will happen, because things will be shared. And a child, as a novice, needs to know not just you don't do this, but you explain you don't do this because. So that the child eventually, as the novice, will pick up the reasons and therefore will see and will wish, and therefore the will itself is functioning and not just by command. If one looks over church life, one can compare both in a parish and in a diocese, and also in parallel in a monastery, whether there's something wrong or not on this level. And I mean in practice this. How much time will a superior, whatever his state, spend actually with and next to those he governs? Quite often, if one looks around, one will find this pattern emerging. Such and such a great prelate, he might be abbot or bishop, or actually it might be a parish priest, who might be very much in the limelight, often seen, but where? Outside that realm for which he'll have to answer before God. I remember picking this up one time in the Purgatory manuscript, which I translated from French. There was a holy priest, it would seem, who died. People presumed that he went straight to heaven because of the great work he'd done, preaching and teaching, notably retreats. Where was he? He was in the lowest level of purgatory. Why? Yes, he did great work, but it was not the work he was asked to do by his state of life. He neglected that which he had to reply for, the souls of those in his pastoral care. And one sees that happening. Many things done, except, for instance, hearing confessions. going to visit the sick in their homes, allowing that to be done by lay people. I've heard complaints. We have a spectacular priest, it might be here or there, I'm not saying where or what country, very rich in initiatives and things which draw attention, but he doesn't visit. All kinds of things are being organized, but this bit is not there. I come back, home and to ground level. The Lord gives us authority in his name. If it's a parent, that parent can't abdicate. The child can't be let before the great automatic babysitter, the screen. That parent also is responsible for the virtual message given, for education passes through the totality of the person. I mean, in practice, the love of Christ is the fundamental commandment, and that has to be lived. The tone depends on the parents. If the children find peace and warmth, there will be grace in the air. If it's something else, it will be something else. We one day will reply for the use we have made of the authority and power that for a while we wield in the name of God.